So this morning, we are having and talking about fun. So I'm going to take a huge risk and tell some jokes. That wasn't one of them, but hey, that's all right. So the sermon this morning is Jesus Walks on Water. The sermon tonight, Searching for Jesus. Get it? Bob, where are you when I need you? A woman invited some people over to dinner, and at the table, she turned to her 6-year-old daughter and said, "Honey, would you like to say the blessing?" "I wouldn't know what to say," the little girl replied. "Just say what you hear Mommy say," she said. So the daughter bowed her head and said, "Lord, why on earth did I invite all these people over for dinner?" A Sunday school teacher asked her children as they were on their way to the church service, "So now why is it really important to be quiet in church?" And one particularly bright little girl said, "Because people are sleeping." And finally, a little boy was overheard praying, "Lord, if you can't make me a better boy, don't worry about it. I'm having a really good time just like I am." I love that one. Doesn't it feel good to laugh? Ah, laughter is so good for us. So it should actually come as no surprise to learn that laughter is literally good for us. It increases our immune response, it raises our endorphins, it relaxes our muscles, and it just all around makes us feel better. Laughter has scientifically been found to have healing qualities, which speaks to why it's so important that we have fun. It's even been theorized that our ability to laugh, and I think most importantly, our ability to laugh at ourselves, to experience and to express joy, to have fun, is actually a sign of spiritual maturity and of spiritual intelligence. And I think it speaks to our capacity to hold ourselves lightly, to take our work seriously, but to take ourselves much less so. So in this community, we have come up with a definition for fun that I love. Here's our definition for fun. We bring a playful, curious energy to everything we do and enjoy learning, loving, and laughing together. Isn't that a wonderful definition of fun? We bring a curious, playful energy to everything that we do. So what does that look like in our lives and in our community? What does it look like to bring a curious, playful energy to what we do? Well, part of it refers back to what we heard Chris read earlier about beginner's mind. It's having a mind that is innocent of preconceptions and of expectations. We might say of assumptions. It's innocent of judgments and prejudices. It's a mind that faces life like a small child, full of curiosity and wonder and amazement. And I just want to, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Clarify the difference between childlike, which is a quality we want to demonstrate, and childish. Do I need to go on? Or, okay. Yeah, good. We're talking about being childlike, full of that wonder and awe and how children approach the world. You know, part of the innocence of children is really exemplified. I see this so much in our granddaughter by the quality of the questions they ask. Have you noticed that children, and particularly little children, aren't afraid to ask what we as adults might think of as embarrassing questions? You know, really, for a child, there's no such thing, right? Because they don't have those preconceptions. They haven't judged that a question would be inappropriate because they're not judging you when they ask it. That's part of that childlike, innocent quality. The teaching, the whole beginner's mind teaching, always reminds me of the story of in Matthew, in the Gospel of Matthew, of when Jesus was admonishing. The background of this is he was admonishing his disciples, really what we would say in our language, for being too much in their head, and trying to figure stuff out. And, well, what are the rules? And how do we get to heaven? And how do we get to be most special when we get there? And what he said to them was, unless you change. Now, some translations use the word convert or repent, but both of those words literally mean to change, and super literally to mean to change our mind. So he's saying, unless you change your mind, in other words, unless you see this differently and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Now, we know that the kingdom of heaven isn't a place, and it's not some place you go to after you die. The kingdom of heaven is what we create right here and now. The kingdom of heaven is that space that we exist in when we recognize who we are and why we're here and who everyone around us is, and appreciate one another with that childlike quality. So when we approach life from this open, childlike, curious, innocent point of view, we find ourselves struggling a lot less. And we find ourselves worrying a lot less. You might notice that worry is pretty antithetic to having fun. They're almost mutually exclusive. So we find ourselves going with the flow more. And in Taoism, this going with the flow is called wu wei. Doesn't just the word sound easy, like wu wei? You're just wooing your way through life. It's actually spelled W-U-W-E-I. But wu wei is that phenomenon of going with the flow, not struggling, not fighting the boulder in your stream, but flowing around the boulder in your stream. In one of my favorite spiritual books, The Tao of Pooh, Benjamin Hoff explains it this way. He says this is a particular way of appreciating and learning from and working with whatever happens in everyday life. From the Taoist point of view, the natural result of this harmonious way of living is happiness. You might say that happy serenity is the most noticeable characteristic of the Taoist personality, and a subtle sense of humor is apparent even in the most profound of Taoist writings. Through working in harmony with life's circumstances, Taoist understanding changes what others may perceive as negative into something positive. From the Taoist point of view, sourness and bitterness comes from the interfering and unappreciative mind. Life itself, when understood and utilized for what it is sweet. So bringing a playful, curious energy to everything we do, again, part of our definition, begins to take on a whole new meaning and a deeper meaning when we see that approaching life with that curious, playful, and childlike energy is actually a spiritual path, and potentially a path that leads to happiness. Pema Chodron has a wonderful approach to curiosity, and this is, she's one of my favorites. She says, inquisitiveness or curiosity involves being gentle, precise, and open. Actually being able to let go and open. Gentleness is a sense of good-heartedness towards ourselves. Precision is being able to see very clearly, not being afraid to see what's really there. Again, back to the children who aren't afraid to ask what we might think are uncomfortable questions. Just as a scientist is not afraid to look into the microscope. And openness is being able to let go and to open. Isn't that a wonderful way of looking at curiosity? Gentleness, precision, and openness. A couple of months ago when I started doing research for this series, you might notice that the quote for the cover of our bulletin for this series is by Roy Disney. And I found a great quote by Walt Disney that I loved, and I purposely saved it for today. I've saved it for 7 weeks. And here's what Walt Disney said about Disneyland and Disney World. He says, "Around here, we don't look backwards for very long. We keep moving forward, opening up new doors and doing new things because we're curious. And curiosity keeps leading us down new paths." He also said, "It's kind of fun to do the impossible." I saw a neat thing on Facebook that said that if we break down impossible, it's I'm possible. Get it? I'm possible. Walt Disney was definitely possible. So do we think it's fun to do the impossible? Do we approach our life, our work, and our relationships with that energy of adventure and fun and that childlike anticipation of doing the impossible? Or as adults, have we become cynical and a little jaded and think that we can't possibly do the impossible? Well, because we have chosen to define fun the way we have, we don't get away with that. We get to do the impossible, and we get to have fun doing the impossible. Nita and I have been talking about how much fun these renovations are going to be, and we really mean that. Now, we may have a different sense of fun than some of you, but I think it's fun to make something beautiful. I think it's fun to come together and get grubby and rip out carpet. Because it's going to get worse before it gets better. You know that, right? Nobody panic when it looks worse after the first week, okay? But then it's fun to watch it transform before our eyes. And I see that building as a metaphor for what we're creating as a community. Because sometimes as a community, things get messy before they get better. But if we can approach that mess, if we can approach this big project with that wonderful energy of Walt Disney, that it's fun to do the impossible. And it's fun to approach one another with this innocence and this childlike energy. The Course in Miracles has a beautiful teaching about this. I've actually used this for weddings. Let us be still an instant and forget all things we ever learned, all thoughts we had, and every preconception that we hold of what things mean and what their purpose is. Let every image of everyone be loosened from our minds and swept away. Be innocent of judgment. Now you do not know your partner, but you are free to learn of each other and to learn of each other anew. Now he or she is born again to you, and you are born again to them. And she or he is free to live as you are free, because an ancient learning has passed away and left a place for truth to be reborn. Innocent of judgment. How amazing is it to create a community and a space where we approach one another innocent of judgment. That actually describes another Taoist concept, that of poo. Now, unlike our buddy, Winnie the Pooh, this one is spelled P'(U). And what it means, as much as we can translate it in English, is the uncarved block, or absolute simplicity. So trying to explain poo only complicates it, as like it is with many Taoist ideas. So we're going to use Winnie the Pooh and his friends from the 100-Acre Woods to describe poo. And we start by comparing the characters. Puff says, "For while Eeyore frets, and Piglet hesitates, and Rabbit calculates, and Owl pontificates, Pooh just is." He compares the wisdom of these wonderful characters this way. He says, "You might say that while Rabbit's little routine is that of knowledge for the sake of being clever, and while Owl's is that of knowledge for the sake of appearing wise, and Eeyore's is knowledge for the sake of complaining about something, Pooh's knowledge is that of the uncarved block, of simplicity. From the state of the uncarved block of Pooh comes the ability to enjoy the simple and the quiet, the natural and the plain. Along with that comes the ability to do things spontaneously and have them work, as odd as that may appear to others at times. When you discard arrogance, complexity, and a few other things that get in the way, sooner or later you will discover that simple, childlike, and mysterious secret known to those of the uncarved block. Life is fun. So, how does this apply to fun as being one of our core values? So remembering that our values represent how we have agreed to be with each other. And even more importantly, our values represent what we have said to the universe is important to us. So what's interesting is I think that this value of fun has the potential to be the most challenging. Because here's the thing. This value, and specifically the way that we've defined it, really raised the bar in how we interact with one another and how we approach being together in this community. Because we're challenged now to be like Pooh, P-O-O-H. We're challenged to be open, curious, non-judgmental, non-resistant, non-defensive. Think of Pooh. We're challenged to truly enjoy learning, loving, and laughing together, to be innocent of judgment, to be willing to learn of each other anew, no matter what we're doing. So whether we're ripping out carpet or cleaning up after a party or spackling drywall, which many of us will be doing for a long time now, or preparing for an event or creating worship services, we have committed to doing it with a playful, curious energy to enjoy being together on the journey. So I don't know about you, but sometimes that feels like a tall order. Because don't we sometimes wake up on the wrong side of the bed? Don't we sometimes wake up not feeling curious or playful or childlike? And yet, as a community, we have committed to be that way with one another. So it can feel like a tall order until we remember how important it is to just have fun. Dale Carnegie once observed, people rarely succeed unless they have fun in what they are doing. And what I love about this little tidbit of wisdom is I don't think he's saying you should only do things that are fun. I think he's saying find a way to make everything that you do fun. Just like the Mary Poppins song. Remember A Spoonful of Sugar? Remember that one? In every job that must be done, there is an element of fun. You find the fun and snap, the job's a game. So that's the element of fun that we are committed to bringing to everything that we do here at One World. So I want to finish this morning with a couple of final thoughts from Benjamin Hoff, who loves Winnie the Pooh. So he says, do you really want to be happy? If so, you can begin by being appreciative of who you are and what you've got. Do you want to be really miserable? Okay, then you can begin by being discontented. Wisdom, happiness, and courage are not waiting somewhere out beyond sight at the end of a straight line. They're part of a continuous cycle that begins right here. They're not only the ending, but the beginning as well. Or as Shirley MacLaine once said, I think of life itself as a wonderful play that I've written for myself. And I've decided my purpose is to have the utmost fun playing my part. So this community is a play that we are creating for ourselves. And we get to decide to have fun playing our part. Let's take that into meditation.